Hello everyone and welcome to my channel. My name is Kalicatv and you're gonna be a spicier person after watching this video. Rule number 1. Don't cheat on me. I've been reading these posts here for a couple of weeks and think it's time I contributed one of my own. Obvious throwaway account. Nah, scratch that. Didn't want to wait for the 7-day rule. TLDR at the bottom. Yada yada yada. In 2008 I met this amazingly awesome girl in school. Let's call her CR. I was 21 and she was just about to turn 19, and we both knew what love was for the first time in our lives. We were both going to a community college, me for theatre design and her for education. We lived about half an hour apart, but that was nothing more than a minor inconvenience because we spent every free moment between classes together. Come to think of it, that slight distance was actually pretty nice, because being home at least forced us to focus on homework and taking care of ourselves, and visiting each other at home was that much more special. CR graduated with her associates in 2009 and moved away to a state school to finish up her degree in early childhood special education. Like before, the distance was not a concern because it was a short train ride away and I'd spend 1 or 2 weekends a month down there with her. I proposed to her on Valentine's Day 2010. School wasn't really my thing and I ended up enlisting in the USAF that following May and got moved halfway across the country to a place neither of us had ever imagined visiting. However, like before, we wouldn't let distance get in our way. Now, it should be noted that her mum did not like me. I still don't know why, but she was always the loudest, rudest, most annoying and disrespectful dirtbag I'd ever met. She was from the city and she married into a family of farmers that owned the land since the 1870s, so that may explain part of her malice. From here on, Evil Witch is EB. Another thing to note is that I have a great memory, and this will be important later on in the story. Anyway, back to the military. I had a 2-week break between my training and leaving for my first and only duty station, which happened to be over Christmas and New Year's. Even though we were engaged, we hadn't really put any consideration into actually getting married. She wanted something small with her family and cousins, and I was completely okay with going to the courthouse and getting it over with. I don't want to sound like I was trying to pressure her into that, but the way I saw it, I would be living in barracks in a few weeks, and being married would get me a full monthly housing allowance, which I would save to have a wedding ceremony when we had time in another year or two. Basically, get married now, don't tell anyone because they would get hella upset for not being involved, and have a fake wedding ceremony that would include both of our families and friends. It turns out that because I was living in barracks, I wasn't allowed to collect the housing allowance, and when, 6 months later, they realised I was actually married, kicked me out and made me get a house on base. Either way, we didn't get married when I was home on leave and took an Amtrak train out west. I highly recommend travelling cross country by train if you have the time. The first time we were able to see each other after that was during her spring break, which was the first part of March. CR and I finally eloped in a courthouse and spent the next few days glued to each other in a penis and vagina style like every young and married couple should. I flew back home for a couple of weeks in June, and this is when things started to unravel. Easter Seals, for those who don't know, runs summer camps for special needs kids, and my new wife volunteered to be a counsellor for the last 7 weeks of the summer. The last time I saw her that summer was just after her June birthday when I dropped her off at camp. The rest of the summer was hit or miss getting in touch with her since she was on the clock 24 hours a day for 5 days a week, and I completely understood her commitment to those kids. When she was back in school the following fall, she became increasingly distant, making excuses about how her phone would be randomly dead at oddly predictable times every week. She flew out to spend Christmas with me in our new house, technically a crappy, mostly empty duplex, and things felt amazing like they had been. After that, however, she went back to being super reclusive like she was with the previous semester. Fast forward to May 2012. I took a whole month of leave to fly home for her graduation and to help her move in with me. I barely recognised her. Every bit of CR's communication with me was forced and so phony that I should have known what was really happening all along. She had set up what she called mock interviews with a couple of grade schools near her hometown, and I actually believed that she was doing it to get the experience of interviewing. What an idiot. When I finally started to catch on to how serious she was about getting a job in our home state, she broke down crying and made it seem like I was forcing her to choose between me and her career, and of course I wanted to put our marriage before anything else. Obviously, I returned to base without her. A couple weeks later, I pressured her into telling me what the hell was going on. She fell in love with one of her fellow camp counsellors and let the affair go on for about 9 months, with claims that she was going to tell me but didn't know when. The usual, too guilty to tie your own shoes bull. And she honestly expected me to walk away from our relationship right then and there. No. I fought tooth and nail to hold us together for 2 months before filing the divorce. I'm skipping a bunch of sappy details here, but the divorce was filed late August and became final that December, mandatory 90-day waiting period in my state. The pain I suffered in that one-sided relationship is something I would never wish on anybody unless they truly deserved it. Apparently entitled witch whispered all kinds of lies to her about how I joined the military to get away from her, and actually had the gall to blame me for all the crying and misery her oldest child was going through. My soon-to-be ex never admitted who was blaming me for everything, but I was really close to her dad and siblings, so I can't imagine that they would ever expect me, but entitled witch was so manipulative that by Halloween they had all turned against me. At that point, I had had it. I was near suicidal and my anxiety attacks were hitting basically every day. I was miserable, tired of being lied to, tired of the slander, tired of being the bad guy when I was the one who was attacked here. It started with sending texts to her brothers and sisters saying, "Hey, I'm actually your brother-in-law. Nice to know we don't keep secrets, right?" CR exploded, but that was just the beginning. I wrote a 3,000-word letter explaining in every detail I could recall exactly what happened, the fact that we were married, including copies of the marriage license and certificate, our plans for the future, and how I was the only one living up to our expectations, where she met the guy she was effing behind my back, his name, address, phone number, camp counselor name, so CR would have a harder time refuting it, and a bunch of other information that made me keep secrets from them. I sent copies to everyone in her extended family. Well, everyone I had an address for. Her roommates, the summer camp she worked at, close professors she had brought up in old conversations, and the principal of the school she ended up working at. Calling the fallout catastrophic is an understatement. Her super devout Catholic family basically disowned her. Her reputation at her former school was shattered, and the tension at her new job was apparently high enough that CR was forced to resign from her position before Christmas break started. Getting those secrets off my chest was the most cathartic moment of my life. I have never understood cheating in any capacity. Why would she go that far to get married when she was basically falling for someone else at the time? I feel really sorry for the original poster, but it's bound to teach CR a lesson not to ever cheat on anyone ever again. Did she deserve to lose her job though? Let me know below. Former friend turned addict. Let's go ahead and insert the usual apologies for being on mobile and not having the best formatting. Also, it's a longin. TLDR, former friend turns into the bad guy junkie, comes after my family and ends up broken in pieces, then becomes a good guy. Me, obviously. D is druggy ex-friend, P the plug. So my story takes place 3 years ago in a small town, less than 10,000, in a rural community. Drugs run rampant in our parts, particularly meth and heroin. With this in mind, let's get to the revenge. D was a friend of mine. We grew up together and had spent many nights at each other's homes. D was older than me and exposed me to many different things, probably much earlier than most. He wasn't a particularly bad guy by any stretch of the imagination, but he did tend to do things extra. We both did drugs, but I was able to maintain a high GPA, was involved in sports, and was generally accepted as a good guy. D, on the other hand, was viewed as a junkie and would routinely have run-ins with the law. D and I grew apart once I graduated high school and went off to college. I quit doing everything aside from drinking, while D dived deeper into the land of make-believe. He had become a pretty well-known piece of crap, to be honest. I had also dropped all of the people that I had formerly associated with that dealt and did drugs. All except one. Let's enter player 3, P. P was a hard ass, for a lack of a better term. He was a biggin. 6'8" up and across and just a monster of a man. Dude was insanely intelligent as well. P was somewhat of a superhero, a man who just shouldn't exist. Well, P and D had a falling out when D had stolen something to the tune of $6,000 worth of product from P. Thus, P was on the lookout for D and could never seem to catch the guy. Where do I play a part? Well, D had stolen quite a bit from both me and my family. D had attacked me on more than one occasion, usually brandishing a weapon. D never whipped up on me, just a few punches before I would throw him down and leave. Things between us were rocky, obviously, but I never really cared too much about it. That was, until I heard he'd been going around telling people he was planning on robbing my parents' home and stealing my disabled brother's pills. Nah, son. So, I hatched a little plan. I rarely ever spoke to P after I stopped doing drugs. However, we live in such a small area, P was very easy to run into at, say, the grocery store. Everyone knew P was looking for D. No one really knew where D was, since according to most he had fled to a nearby state. No one knew except his parents. I'm not proud, but I conned his location from his parents. This crazy mother effer was living in the woods, like literal tent and stuff in the freaking woods. They told me mostly due to the fact that he and I were best friends and maybe hoped I could talk sense into him. I don't know how it happened, but someone tipped P off to D's various campsites. He and some guys ran up in his tent in the dark and beat him. D ended up in the hospital with a broken everything. Obviously not literal, but it's about as close as you can get. P isn't a suspect. In fact, I don't even really think there is a suspect. P never got his product back, unfortunately. Because D was in the hospital for so long, he obviously went through a detox program. He's now clean, albeit he walks a little funny now. Maybe this doesn't exactly qualify, maybe it does. All I know is, D never once accused me of anything and apologised profusely due to how he treated others and me. In the weirdest and most messed up way, this is actually kind of a wholesome revenge? Hear me out. D was obviously a piece of crap, but he was an addict, and most addicts don't act rationally. But because he got beat up and ended up in the hospital, he's now clean and able to use this as a second chance to completely turn his life around. And I hope he took it. Okay, so that's all for r/NuclearRevenge. I really hope you did enjoy it. As always, if you do want to see more content like this, then please do subscribe. My Twitter, Discord, and Patreon links are in the description, and any support is greatly appreciated. Thank you so much for watching.